Now, you're probably right if you feel screwed in this country. Because if you're middle class, that's probably what's happening. I mean, we've changing so much in this country that it's really squeezing out the middle. And, that's why I like statistics. It seems like, that old fable about the frog in the frying pan, how if you turn up the heat slow enough, and you have a frog in a frying pan, the frog, because the heat changes so slowly, it'll just stay there. And all of a sudden, after a slow time, it'll start dying, right? It'll cook itself to death by not getting out of there. But if the pan is real hot, and you throw the frog in, right, it's going to bounce out. So it's not going to hang there to die because it knows it's freezing. It's going to cook them to death. So that's the same way with statistics, I think. Like in our own life, I mean, it's so easy to justify what's going on, and this is bad, yes, but, and oh, my income went down, yes, but, and if I only did that, and so we all could rationalize anything bad that's going on in our life. And that's the problem with getting too smart sometimes. You rationalize everything. You can find an answer to something. So if you get statistics, the broad numbers, on what's going on macro, not micro in your little life. So I put together some data, that I look at this all the time. So, it comes across my eyes anyway. So I gathered some of the recent stuff that really shows, man, if you feel screwed, man, you're probably right. Now look what happened in the last, this is like just the last 10 years or so. What happened to all the extra money that we grew in this country? It's called GDP, Gross Domestic Product. So we're like a business as a country. So we're doing, whether it's $1 million or $1 trillion in business or whatever it is, and then we grow. We do more business. So like General Motors selling more cars, Facebook having, more sales. So how much more sales is America generating? Well, in the last 10 years, the extra sales, 100% went to the top 1%. Now, isn't that incredible? So they got I'm sorry, not the top 1%, the top 10%. So 100% of the extra sales in the last 10 years went to the top 10%. So that means 90% of us, that old 90%, didn't get a share in any of that extra wealth that the government and the country and our society has created, right? So we didn't get a penny unless you were in the top 10%. Okay, now, and actually, if you look at this graph, you'll see how it slowly changed. See, back after Second World War, the bottom 90% got it all almost. And the top 10% got very little. So it has been changing. And so now by the 50s, the top 10% was getting a little bit more. By the 60s, the top 10% getting a little more. By the 70s, and through the 70s, it was getting a little more even. Like 50% was going to the, bottom 90%, and 50% was going to the top 90%. And then in the 80s, it just started to change. Who was in president then? I forget. Oh, Reagan, that's right. So by the 80s, then, the top, 10% was getting almost 90%. 80%, 90%, in the 2000s. And then, now it's getting 100%. And actually, from the recession, 2009, 2012, the bottom 90% lost money. So more than 100% went to the top 10%. All these percentages get screwed up. In other words, the top 10% is getting 100% of all the new income that's generated in this country. So it's not being shared around. That's why I think a lot of people are getting pissed. If you see things growing around you and you're not growing too, man, you're going to start storming the gates, or whatever. So, and look at this. There's another piece of data I look at a lot, because when I was starting my career, when I was like 30 years old, got in the military, or whatever, back in 1973, that's about when I started, my career. And here's some data on that. So when I was, and this is income for men in 1973, okay, the median income. Now the median is different than the mean. The mean is the average. So you take all the people, like 10 people, add up their income, divide by 10, and that's the mean or the average income. The median income, I think, is more significant because that's where the money is half. Half the people are right in that middle. So if you have 10 people, like the old story goes, if there's 10 people in a bar, and they're all making $30,000, but Bill Gates comes in and he's making $2 billion, well, that median income changes hardly at all. The average income changes a lot. So it's, what is it? So you have half the people making this much and the other half making that much. What's the middle part of the income? So that's why median, like the median of a street, it's half the street. It's in the middle of the street. What was that back in 73? $47,000. That's in current terms. I wasn't making 47. It was 10, 15 grand or whatever it is. But today's dollars, that's $47,000. Now at that time in 73, the economy, like all business, America's business, all the money we're making in America was like $5.5 trillion. So in 1973, a 30-year-old male was making $47,000 median, and the business of America, all the money in it that it was generating that year, was $5 trillion. Now we tripled. Okay, we went from $5 trillion to 2013 to $15 trillion. What happened to income? Well, I'm thinking my boys are about 30 years old now. So when I'm starting, now the average income for my boys' generation, $34,000. Look how much they lost. So when I was 30 years old, people my age were making almost 50% more than people my age now, or 30 years old now. I mean, this is what's happened, And you see the graph behind the numbers. See the gross national product is going up, but income's going down. So we're doing very well as an economy, but the average person isn't, right? So that's, if you feel screwed and you're in the middle class, you're probably right. Now, another thing I think about, what are the big expenses of the middle class? What's happening to that? And this is where the screws are even tightening more. Because to me, one of the big expenses we have in the middle class, and the tri-state middle class, is higher education. Well, look at this graph. What has happened to tuition and higher education in this country? Man, it has grown over 130%, in the last 20 years. So that means a bigger portion of your salary now. It's like somebody coming in and say, okay, we're going to triple your rent. Or we're going to triple your mortgage. So now what you had to pay for mortgage, no, you have to triple that. So that means everything else is suffering because you have to grab that money and not go to the movies anymore, not eat nice anymore. Because you got to pay what you think is a necessity for going to college, because that is tripling. Because you can't live any other way. So you see home prices barely went up from 1980 to 2010. Consumer price index hardly went up. But man, college tuition through the roof. So what you want to do is become a college professor, right? That's how to get onto that thing. Or even just look at income versus tuition. Man, see, over from 1988, this graph shows you how income barely went anyway. This is the median income. Remember that median word we talked about. That was stayed still over that time, where college tuition just blew. So that means a bigger percent of the money you're coming in has to go to college tuition, so everything else suffers. So that's why you feel tight, so you feel screwed. Okay, now the other thing I think that's very important for the middle class and all of us is health care. Man, because you can't live without health care. So you can't grow without higher education, and you can't live without health care. So house, you need education, you need health care. These are your big expenditures in life. So look what happened to healthcare expenditures as a percentage of GDP. So all the economy in the United States, a bigger and bigger percentage is going to pay for health care. Okay, so that means, again, okay, we got to take dollars from something else that we really like doing and have to pay for health care because that's almost a necessity, right? So it's a bigger percent. It's creeping up close to 20%. It's like 17, 18% of everything. Yeah. And actually, people say that, the increase in health care, over this period, or like the last 20 years or so, is like you paying an extra $400 a month in health care. So that means you don't have an extra $400 to pay for your mortgage, or, go to college to pay for that rising cost, or just to have fun, or whatever it is that's important to your life. So that's what's happening to our money. Look at this graph, because now, is rising healthcare good or bad? I don't know. But when you compare it to other countries, look at this graph. These are all the developed countries in the world, okay? That are people, United Kingdom, Japan, people that develop, not underdeveloped countries, So people that develop like us, And look at that graph. Look what we do. We pay an average of $8,745 a person. Every person is paying that in America. So that's why the average in all the other developed countries only pay $3,000. Wow! So everybody's paying less than half we are for health care. I mean, that's the most amazing. Why we have to do something to healthcare. Forget about who's doing it, and we're arguing who's doing it, and all this kind of stuff. No, it's the cost. We're going into the grave if we're going to pay more and more percentage of everything for healthcare and still have lousy healthcare. Now something's wrong with that system. So that's a clue to me. Then that's where you're going. That's why I mean you're getting screwed. Okay, check this next graph. Now. This shows you that we are the worst country in all the developed countries. There's a dozen or so of these developed countries. The worst in people not getting the health care because they don't have enough money to pay for it. So you're not going to get that exam to see if something's wrong, or investigate that lump you have, or hey, I think I have cancer. I can't afford it. Things like that. Look, over a third of the people have experienced not getting the health care they thought they needed because of cost. Look at all the other countries. I mean, Netherlands, UK, 4% of the country. We're 37% of the people are not getting the health care they need because of cost. So, I mean, to me, that we have less people getting health care because they don't have money to get it, and we're paying twice as much as everybody else. So that's a clue something's wrong, right? Okay, another thing about the middle class being screwed is that, are we good at, like, my boys doing better than me? Are you doing better than your parents? Or did your parents do better than their children? So can the next generation or the current generation do better than the last generation? I mean, that was the American dream, right? That was, the rags to riches story, what America is all about. You come here and you don't need anything, and you can become, to the next class of people. Well, I mean, these eggheads all around the world, get data on that to see if that's true or not. And look at this graph, where we stand if you live in the country, and if you're able to move into the next income category or not, or if you're going to stay where you are or go back. We're number 12. So in other words, you could go from rags to riches in 12 other countries faster than you can in the United States. That sounds like an oxymoron to me, doesn't it? I mean, I grew up, I'm an old guy, but America was always the land of opportunity. Anybody could do it. Look, there's 12 other countries where the data, not anecdotal. I know a friend who did this, and a guy in Germany says it's this. Well, look, I mean, here's all the countries. It's easier for people there to move above into a next class of income than it is in our country. That's amazing to me too. So what does this all mean? I don't know. means something different to each of us. But I think what I'm trying to do in my work is show you alternatives, because so many things in our country now say, oh, you could do this if you spend a lot of money. So like education is important. So I'm trying to show people where there's other options for education, so you don't have to do that. A source for income and rising to the next level of income is really entrepreneuring in this country. So I'm trying to show people how you don't need a lot of money for entrepreneuring, because in this country, when you want to do something, you're going to find, oh, there's a barrier to do anything because some expert tells you need a lot of money to do that. Well, I don't think you do, or there's ways around it, or that may be true for some things, but not true for everything. So you have to expand your mind, use the new technology, the technology stuff that's out there for you to improve your lot and to grow, because I think we all get cranky if we can't do anything, if we can't grow. And if you feel stifled, or whatever, because you can't grow, you can't get what you need, there are options than the normal things. And that's what I'm trying to show you, is the alternatives, not the traditional ways of doing things, but the alternative ways that give you, whether it's grants from the government, nonprofit organizations, the internet, that now they're crowdsourcing, peer-to-peer, all this kind of stuff. There's better options out there if you start learning them. A lot of this stuff is new, so it goes through a learning period, try to learn something. And that's what our YouTube channel is all about. YouTube, Matthew Lesko 70. We have almost 500 to 1,000 videos on all this stuff I've found. And I'm going to keep finding new stuff till I die. So, because it's helpful, but it's hard to find. It's so complicated out there. So let me help you.